Hello everyone, welcome back to Divination channel. Today we're diving into one of the life's timeless topics, love and marriage. In life, when two souls cross paths, we often call it fate. But when those two souls bind themselves together in marriage, it becomes something deeper, what we call marriage fate. Yet marriage fate is not always eternal fairy tale we long for. Some bonds endure, others dissolve. Some feel like blessings, others like burdens. Love can be radiant, yet fragile. As Shakespeare reminded us, journeys end in lovers' meeting, but he never promised that the journey could last forever. Every union carries both a beginning and an end, and even when love itself fades, the emotions it leaves behind rarely vanish so neatly. That's why marriage fate is so compelling. It is not just about romance, but about the raw interplay between love, time, and reality. Why do I say marriage fate feels so mysterious, almost random? Ask yourself, is the partner you're with today truly the mirror of ideal partner you once imagined? For most of us, the answer is no. When we're young, we write mental checklists, appearance, income, education, family background. But the heart has its own logic, one that rarely follows those neat lines. Sometimes it takes just a fleet smile, a single conversation, a moment of timing, and suddenly two lives are intertwined. Years later, when we look back, we often ask, what did I even see in this person at the beginning? Reality, bills, responsibilities, disagreements rarely matches the dream, and yet somehow we stayed, and we find a kind of stability in the very ordinariness of it all. This is the paradox of fate, irrational, unpredictable, and yet oddly undeniable. Many imagine marriage fate as one love for 1K or the one and only soulmate. But life seldom works that way. The Stoics in ancient Rome taught us, fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. Fate does not guarantee symmetry or fairness. Some people encounter love more than once, some wander without finding it at all, and others hold on to relationships that never truly blossom. We also project our own standards onto others. When an elegant woman marries a man who appears plain or unremarkable, society whispers, he must be wealthy or he must know how to charm her. Yet, this is only our bias because we cling to the illusion that love must follow certain rational patterns. But reality defines such rules. Couples we thought were mismatched often endure a lifetime together. Couples we thought were perfectly suited often part ways in bitterness. This is the enigma of fate. It slips beyond logic, beyond calculation, reminding us that the human heart has its own fathomable rhythm. The classic Chinese novel Dream of the Red Chamber once asked, if there's no fate, why did I meet you? And if there is fate, why must it end in emptiness? This paradox is not unique in Chinese literature. It echoes in the tragedy of Shakespeare, in Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, even in the poetry Rainer Maria Rilke. Love can be profound, yet still defeated by circumstance. Two people may feel deeply connected, yet external forces intervene. Family opposition, economic hardship, cultural barriers. Human beings live with both spirit and body. The soul longs for intimacy, but the body must survive within society and material reality. Here lies what I call the double bind. If you move forward, you risk watching passion dissolve into daily struggles, bills, children, disagreements. If you step back, you choose solitude, only to face the weight of loneliness and social expectation. As the Tibetan poet Shangyang Jiacuo wrote centuries ago, how can one satisfy both heaven and love? In the West, the same dilemma is captured by the phrase, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. Even the legendary story of monk Xuanzang, who journeyed to India for sacred scripture, illustrates this. In Chinese law, he passes through the kingdom of women, tempted by love, yet ultimately chooses duty and higher calling. Was his desire wrong? Not at all, but life demanded a choice. Love and duty, intimacy and independence, passion and responsibility. Life rarely allows us to have both. When we're young, we believe in pure love. We imagine that if I like you and you like me, nothing else should matter. As we grow older, we realize reality is more complex. Love exists in heart, but marriage exists in the world. Love speaks in poetry, marriage speaks in rent payment, in childcare, in obligations. And when this collide, the results can be painful. Why were romance novels so intoxicating in the past? In China, people were captivated by Chunyao's melodramatic stories of love that defies the world. In the West, we can think of Jane Austen's heroines or even Hollywood's romantic dramas. Narratives where love conquers all. They speak to audiences at times of culture transition, when people longed for emotional liberation but still feared the instability of rapid social change. But read or watch them today, then many of us will feel they are naive, even unrealistic. Why? Because we now understand love can be explosive, but marriage must be sustainable. Marriage without material stability is like a house without foundation. It collapses at the first storm. And so society swings back, once again, to what our ancestors always knew. Compatibility matters. In the West, this was once called marrying within your class. In China, it was a proper match between families. And so the cycle turns. One generation glorifies love above all. The next rediscover the wisdom of balance, respect, and shared responsibility. The pendulum keeps swinging, but the truth is the same. Love alone is rarely enough. If we see life as a long journey, then love and marriage are simply roads along the way. Some are wide and smooth, others narrow and rugged. Some begin with beauty and end in cliff, while others start with thorns but eventually open to clear horizons. This is why people often ask me, is this relationship my destined blessing or is it my curse? My answer, both are possible. Fate does not categorize our experiences as purely good or bad. It simply unfolds. Whether we call it a blessing or burden depends largely on our own perspective. Even the same relationship can transform in meaning. At the beginning, it may feel like a blessing, radiant and full of joy. Later, when conflicts arise, it may feel like a curse. And sometimes, after hardship, it becomes a source of unexpected strength. As the German philosopher Nietzsche once wrote, there are no facts, only interpretations. In matters of love, this is profoundly true. What we call blessing or curse is often just a label we attach to the road we happen to be walking. Let me share a story of a friend which illustrates this perfectly. She grew up in a well-educated, respectable family and had very clear expectations for a future partner. For years, she struggled with arranged introductions and failed matches, until one day she asked me to look at her fate. I told her she met me someone important around the 5th or 11th month of the lunar year. When May passed, with no one introduced, she laughed at me and said, I stayed home waiting and nothing happened. I replied, fate may give you the timetable, but you still have to board the train. You cannot wait at home for destiny to knock on the door. Later that year, she did meet someone, a man her parents disapproved of. She came from a rough background, with little education, and carried the air of a straight hustler. On the surface, he didn't match her world at all, yet somehow they fell in love. Her mother called me in frustration. She listens to you, and now she claims you told her they're destined. What do I do? All I could say was, destiny may bring people together, but only choice and effort determine how they live together. They married quickly, against her mother's wishes. At first, it went as one might expect. Financial troubles, family clashes, even betrayal. Her husband was unfaithful, and she nearly divorced him. But then something unexpected happened. One night at a restaurant, a group of drunk men harassed her. Without hesitation, her husband stepped in to defend her and was stabbed in the process. As she watched him bleed, she realized whatever his flaws, he was willing to risk his life for me. She stayed, they rebuilt their life together, and today, while not perfect, they have found a kind of uneasy but enduring peace. This story is not about a bad man redeemed or love conquering all. It is a simple life, messy, contradictory, and impossible to reduce to a single moral. From one angle, her marriage looked like a curse. From another, it was a profound blessing. And as the Chinese sage Zhuangzi once said, what is death becomes life, what is life becomes death. In the shifting mirror of the human heart, love constantly changes form, yet through all its changes, it remains fate. The story I just shared isn't meant to prove a neat moral. It is not about redemption, not about punishment. It is simple life as it is. From the perspective of people involved, the same relationship can mean very different things depending on where you stop the story. If you phrase it at the beginning, it looks like a beautiful blessing. If you stop at betrayal and pain, it looks like a curse. If you end with sacrifice and devotion, it looks like love renewed. Human experiences constantly reverse themselves. Our feelings shift, our judgment flip, but what remains unbroken is the thread of fate that binds people together. This is why relationships are so difficult to define. They do not stay still. They evolve, collapse, transform, and yet they're still real, still part of us. As the English poet Wordsworth observed, though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, we will grieve not, rather find strength in what remains behind. What we call fate is not permanence, but about the mark each encounter leaves upon us. There's an old saying, marriage is not just between two people, it is between two families. Young lovers often dismiss this, but once they marry and face the web of relatives, expectation, and obligations, they begin to realize its truth. Think of it this way. When you see a flower blooming in the wild, you admire its beauty, but if you pluck it and take it home without the right soil, it withers quickly. Love, like a flower, is dazzling, but without the soil of stability and shared values, it rarely lasts. This is why cultures across the world, East and West, have emphasized compatibility. In China, it was called a proper match between families. In the West, it was marrying within your class. It was never only about wealth, but about lifestyle, expectation, and social values aligning closely enough to provide that soil for love to survive. Historically, there were even child betrothals, where two families tied their children together long before love could even enter the equation. In modern eyes, they seem absurd, yet the logic was clear. If the families already blended, then the marriage could have fewer conflicts later. Of course, modern people place love first, and rightly so, but our ancestors were not blind to love. They simply saw love as fragile compared to material reality. They valued a stable foundation over fleeting passion. There was also the tradition of marrying upward, where women were encouraged to marry into families slightly above their own social class. Why? Because it's easy to rise into luxury, but hard to fall into poverty. A woman used to abandon in her parents' home may feel resentful if married into a household that can only offer modest meals, even if her in-law were giving their best. That gap in expectation, over time, breeds conflict. Marriage, after all, is part of the ordinary world. We all eat, sleep, work, and face daily needs. If one person gives their only piece of bread, but the other were expecting a feast, both will still feel wronged. As the old saying goes, love may fill the heart, but it doesn't always fill the stomach. Passion is important, but it cannot replace the soil of reality. Modern love and marriage have broken away from traditions that lasted for centuries. Today, we prize individual choice and romantic love above all. No longer do we follow parental arrangement or family negotiation. On the surface, it feels liberating. But liberation comes with its own chaos. In the past, society was restrictive, even rigid, but there was structure. People knew the rules, and marriages, while not always happy, were often stable. Today, we have freedom, but no new structure has replaced the old. The result, a flood of anxiety, confusion, and broken expectations. This is not about condemning tradition or glorifying modernity. It is about recognizing the cost of each. Asian marriages were predictable but constrained. Modern marriages are free but unstable. So what do we need now? Two qualities, wisdom and compassion. Wisdom is perspective, the ability to see larger picture, to set beyond our immediate emotions. Compassion is tolerance, the ability to hold space for another's flaws, for the imperfections of life itself. Wisdom without compassion turns into arrogance and cleverness. Compassion without wisdom becomes weakness and self-destruction. Only when both coexist can modern love survive its contradictions. Today, countless blogs and advice columns promise young people, here are the 10 things you must check before marriage. Follow the rules and you will find a perfect partner. Why are such lists so popular? Because marriage feels like the single biggest decision of our lives. and everyone craves certainty. But these formulas often create more anxiety, not less, and here's why. 1. Human behaviors cannot be reduced to a checklist. The same action can mean very different things in different people. Someone frugal may be wise with money, or they may be stingy and insecure. Without empathy and real understanding, rules mislead us. 2. Life itself is unstable. You might marry someone who looks like the perfect partner on paper, kind, responsible, successful, and yet, after years, they change, or perhaps you change. Many married couples confess the person I married is not the same person I live with today. That's not necessarily deception, it's simply growth or sometimes decline. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus said, "No man ever stepped in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man." So too in marriage. Love that felt eternal at one stage may fade or transform at another. People often blame divorce on betrayal or financial stress, but at its core, the truth is simpler. Everything changes. If you embrace the joy of beginnings, you must also accept the pain of endings. The sun rises and sets, flowers bloom and wither. Faith brings people together, and faith let them go. In the language of Eastern philosophy, accept the change, flow with change, let go when the time comes. This ultimately is not resignation, it is practice. It is what it means to truly walk the path of wisdom. A friend once came to me asking, "Can I reconcile with my ex-girlfriend?" I cast a Qigong chart and told him the chances are slim, but he insisted, "I still want to try." So I encouraged him, "Then go, better to make the attempt than to live with regret." A month later, he returned. She had declined his request, and soon she was moving to another city. Still unwilling to give up, he asked again for guidance. The second reading gave him the same result. Before long, he was about to board a train to see her one last time. He begged me for the third reading. But the I Ching says, "Ask once, and the oracle speaks." Ask repeatedly, the oracle falls silent. Still, seeing his desperation, I cast again, and once again the answer was no. At the end of that year, he told me she refused to meet him. He signed and said, "Perhaps that is heaven's will. I'm learning to let go." This is the way of life. You cannot avoid the process and you cannot avoid the pain. Some lessons you must pay for yourself. And so I always remind people, a rating is a compass, not a command. You still must act, otherwise regret may haunt you longer than failure ever could. Many people are fascinated about the idea of a true soulmate. What in Chinese culture is called 正缘. They imagine that at the right time and place, the universe will deliver the perfect person, the one who completes them, the one who never leaves. It sounds beautiful, but is that real? Psychologically, these yearnings comes from our deep need for safety. To believe in a destined partner is to believe in certainty, to believe that love can be guaranteed. It's a comforting thought. But in reality, when we're with someone we desire, we call it a blessing. When we are with someone we don't, even for a lifetime, we call it a curse. During romance, we swear it's forever. In the grind of daily life, we wonder if it was ever real. So the idea of a true soulmate is less about fate, it's more about our own projection. It is a story we tell ourselves to soothe the heart. Think about it. Countless people have lived their whole lives with partners they did not initially choose or even love. Was that fate? Was that failure? Or was it simply the path life handed them? As the writer Alain de Botton once said, "A perfect partner is not someone who shares all our tastes, but someone who negotiates differences with grace." What matters is not whether someone is stamped by the universe as your one true match, but whether, through the ups and downs, you both grow, endure, and learn together. The Czech writer Franz Kafka once wrote, "In war, you bleed. In peace, you stumble." His words capture the paradox of modern love. Much of what we believe about romance doesn't come from reality, but from art, novels, films, plays. Art draws from life, yes, but exaggerates, heightens, and dramatizes. It gives us Shakespeare's star-crossed lovers, Hollywood's sweeping love story, and Nicholas Sparks' tragedy of eternal devotion. These tales leave us believing that love is meant to be fierce, explosive, defiant of the world. and sometimes it is. We see people willing to sacrifice everything for love. We see passion that burns brighter than reason. We see couples who believe that love itself can conquer all. But hear the truth. Fireworks are spectacular, but they fade. Real marriage is built not on fireworks, but on soil. This is why in times of great struggle, war, poverty, persecution, couples often hold each other tighter. They become each other's refuge, but once the storm passes and ordinary life returns, many discover that sustaining love in face of routine is far harder. We admire the fire, but forget the foundation. The greatest challenge of love is not its beginning, but its endurance. And endurance demands not just the passion, but wisdom and compassion. Marriage and love are never simple. They are not formulas, they are not promises carved in stone. They're living, shifting, unpredictable. Modern anxiety about relationships often comes from our obsession with perfection. But marriage is not the fusion of two perfect beings. It is a collision of two imperfect souls learning through trial and error how to live, forgive, and grow together. So let me leave you with this. Love is fireworks, marriage is soil. The fireworks dazzle the night sky but vanish quickly. The soil, humble and quiet, nourishes life for years to come. If you chase only fireworks, you may forever live in disappointment. But if you learn to tend the soil with patience, with understanding, then love, though quieter, can endure a lifetime. As the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard said, marriage is and always will be the most important journey from self-centeredness to selflessness. May we all walk that journey with wisdom and compassion, and in the ordinariness of life, find a happiness that is quietly extraordinary.